Welcome to the Christmas episode, episode 19 of the Quick Snap podcast, here with David Andrews and producer Danny. After a tough fought loss against the Buffalo Bills, I don't think anyone expected the showing that the Patriots had, and as David and I always talk about, no moral victories, but it was a far cry, far difference from the effort we saw out in Arizona last week, and they gave the Bills, who arguably the best team in the NFL, a run for their money.
Yeah, I thought it was a tale of two halves. First half looked like some of our best football all year, and then, the second half, some of our worst. And, look, all the things we did in the first half were what we talk about, staying ahead on down and distance. We played from ahead. Defense was playing really good, and then all of a sudden, we're driving, pick, fumble, the lateral, whatever you want to call it, fumble. Like, that's 6 points right there that the defense didn't even step on the field. We were, whatever happened on the interception, that was a, drive looking for points, probably in field goal range. If not, could have been whatever. So it was all those things, some things that I would say have hurt us in the past, reared their head in the second half. And that's to me when I was watching the game, it just was the tale of two halves. Like the first half, clean, crisp football, taking care of the football, moving the ball, staying ahead on down and distance. Second half, all that. And then, one thing from an offensive line standpoint that I noticed, maybe not from like the offensive line, but just as a whole offensively, it seemed like we didn't, handle the blitz pretty well. I texted you, Hoy, about that. Like, as the game went on, it seemed like, they were bringing, call it blitz zero is what we call it. And, there's different adjustments you can make to that. And like I said, I'm not in a lot of the meetings right now because of rehab and stuff. So I don't know what was exactly talked about. Obviously don't know. I think it would be so cool to be like watching it on TV and like having the microphone for the earplay, and then you have you have a little better idea of what they're trying to do. And, that was kind of, I'd say the turnovers and then just some of the answers on the blitz zero were some things that stuck out to me watching the second half.
Yeah, I kind of got into it with Tom Kern on the postgame show a little bit, and I love Tom, but he was kind of complaining about the play call of the lateral that turned into a touchdown, and I said, that's not coaching. If anything, that's Drake. First of all, the right tackle's got to cut the defensive end. How many times have we run that play, and what did Josh always say? I know Josh isn't here, but we ran the same play. He'd be like, look, we got to get we got to throw, we got to get the ends hands down. And then on top of that, as a quarterback, when you see that and you realize that even if you do complete the pass and it's a forward pass or Ramondre is going to get drilled, you just throw it at his feet and you move on to the next play. And Josh would always tell us quarterbacks, don't make a bad play worse. And so that's the quarterback's responsibility. And Drake, I really have come to admire the way a young 22-year-old face of the franchise sits up there and takes the accountability for it.
I thought he did a great job in his press conference.
He goes, look, quite frankly, that's BS. That's not on the coaches. That's on me. That's on us as players, which is great to hear a young guy. I mean, a lot of young guys should watch him and just learn from him how he deals with the media, because he's got to do it every single week on Wednesday press conference and after the game. But I said, if you want to really critique the coaching, like when you get down in the red area, and they got bailed out by some pass interference calls, but when they keep bringing blitz zero, you got to make an adjustment. And that was the thing to me. I'm sitting there thinking, and back from when we played with Josh, we had a million blitz zero answers, and I'm just seeing them snap the ball, and Drake knows it's coming and just roll out and throw the ball away. Whereas, look, we know in the NFL, if you get beat by something, they're going to keep testing you until you prove that you can get it done. And so I think that's a thing right there. And this is, I kind of texted you like, welcome to the West Coast system, because in the West Coast system, there's supposed to be these built-in hots and all these things. But I remember I'd be like playing for Kyle Shanahan. I'd be like, Kyle, what if they bring blitz zero here? And he literally would say like, be a baller and make a play. And I was like, great. Like, I hope I can. I'm not the most athletic guy, but I'll try to do my best. And you have Drake, so you may get away with it from time to time. But I think that's something you got to get to. And he addressed it in his post-game press conference too. He's like, they keep bringing that blitz zero. I got to be ready for it. Well, give him a check into a max protection or run a slip screen or something, because when they keep repeat doing that, they're going to do it until you prove that you can beat them. Now they got, like I said, they got bailed out by the pass interference on KB because they finally did call kind of a blitz zero beater route. It wasn't the protection wasn't better, but he was at least able to get it out early. But they got the pass interference. You get a touchdown to Hunter. So making some of those adjustments will help. But getting back to Drake, I think this was probably the best start we've seen all year. Goes down, and I know everybody's in love with the touchdown pass to Booty, but I was actually more impressed with that third down conversion to Hunter because there were some free blitzers coming right at him. He drifted through with great anticipation, got converted that third down, which they had a tough time doing against Arizona, staying on the field. So that conversion right there allows you to be able to throw that touchdown pass. And then there was another one where there was a blitz in the A gap. Gibson stepped up, made a great protection, great block. Drake kind of drifted to his right, threw a ball to Booty. Like those are the plays that you can get excited about. But ultimately, David, like you and I both know, nothing correlates to winning and losing more than turnovers. And so, like you said, you have the lateral, you give them 7 points right there. The interception was probably going to be at least 3 points. So there's 10. And then Mondre fumbles and they go down and score. And so it's just those are the things that you just can't overcome, especially when you're the type of team that the Patriots are. But I was just glad, and I think with all of the Gerard Mayo hot seat, oh, he's got to do this to keep his job, we got to have a good showing. They showed up to play, and it was evident from the first drive of the game. And the defense, I mean, this is other than the Lions, which we just saw the Buffalo Bills go into Detroit and beat those guys. This is the best offense in the NFL, and this was probably Josh Allen's worst game of the year, so they contained him. If it wasn't for the long run by Dalvin Cook, I mean, they really didn't have those Buffalo-esque
No,
plays where there was a bunch of chunk plays.
Really played good. And, like you said, yeah, obviously turnovers happen and stuff, but and yeah, you would love to see your defense, stop them, but you turn the ball over on basically in the red zone for them, on the fumble, what do you expect the defense to do, really? And so it's plays like that, it's the whole team effort. And sure, yeah, you can, you never want, what am I trying to say? You never want to be bailed out, or have to be bailed out. Now, granted, that's where this game's great because sometimes that stuff happens, right? Like sometimes you go out there and you fumble, and next thing you know, your defense gives up, 3 points and saves it, 4-point play, and you're able to go back and score, and it looks like no harm, no foul, but that's not always the case. And so I think always,
Well, for example, not that, look at Buffalo has one turnover, and Mapu makes the interception, and he tries to bring it out, and it ends up being like the perfect punt. Literally, Josh throws it up for grabs. Okay, it's an interception, but then he tries to bring it back out. He's on the 1 yard line. I mean, they couldn't have punted the ball.
Thank God we were able to, get the ball out to the. I think that's when we ran the PP dive too. That was right after that because we got it to 4th and 1, and then they ended up stopping us shortly after that. But we were able to get the ball out, to the 30, 40 yard line, whatever it was. So you can play a little bit better field position. But yeah, I thought the same thing. Ball backed up on the 1 yard line. That situation, either one or two things happen, and not always, but playing percentages, they're going to have you backed up. You're going to have a backed up punt, get the ball at the 40. They're basically going to be where they were when 5 minutes ago, or something even more catastrophic like a safety turnover down there. But yeah, I think the swing pass thing, we've done them all the time here, and it's kind of funny because sometimes you would think, and I don't know, I guess I'm asking your perspective, because even when we'd run 3-step drops sometimes, right? Even in Josh's old system, we'd cut the D ends. And, it's one of those things where it's kind of, you like it as an O lineman because you're it's not a playoff, but you said something like no read or something earlier. It's kind of breather play. It is one of those for us. The ball's coming out quick, chance to get it to a skill guy. But I think, there's just, I've always, even, 8 years ago when cutting was more prevalent in the game, it's still one of those things, you don't practice it. You don't cut your guys in practice. We used to run, 58, 59 in practice all the time. And what did the tackles do? Hey, I'm cutting you. And they just bend down, and the DM wouldn't bat the ball. Yep. And, that's great and all, and like I get it because the last thing you want to do is practice is go out there and cut one of your DNs, and now he's out with a
Hmm.
bone bruise or something. And but it's one of those plays as an offensive lineman where I'm like, oh, this is so good, but like also like, oh man, you're just like, I don't know. It's like it's kind of like a screenplay. It's like Dante used to say, screenplays were either a shit house or a castle, and so it's a lot of people are doing them. There's a lot of good to them, and like I said, but it's also one of those as an offensive lineman, and I don't play tackle, but these DNs, man, they're freaky, and you got to try to get them down.
Yep.
As it seems easier to execute than it is sometimes, but
Yeah. I just think my point was, look, ideally, the right tackle cuts the end. You have a lead. If you actually look at the play, if he's able to get the ball off, like Gibson is actually lead blocking, you got two other blockers out there. It's going to be a good play. It's a great play call if you want to not really. And this is going to sound crazy, put the ball in harm's way because
no, I know
you're only
exactly
throwing it
what
to
you
one
mean.
guy. And so as a quarterback, like all you got to do is see that the end hasn't been cut, and that even if you complete the pass, forget the part where he didn't get enough depth in his drop, and Mondre had to bubble a little bit because he saw the defensive end there. Just get enough depth and throw it at his feet and move on to the next. I think that's look. This is what we kind of got in this argument on the post game show. There's going to be rookie mistakes from a rookie quarterback. I understand that. This was a debate going in. Well, at what point do you let Drake play? I would say he's exceeded expectations because he's gone out every week and gotten better. And for this game, there were some plays that he did that were great, but those two plays, and he admits it, and that's why I think the Patriots are so lucky to have a guy with his mentality, his maturity, because he knows like the leash for him is super long. And so when he hears the things being said about his head coach, his offensive coordinator, he knows that he can get up there and take the accountability and say, look, like that's on me. Quite frankly, it's BS when he hears it and he throws his support behind those guys. And that's echoed by the veteran players. We
Yep.
talked about it last week. Godshaw, Dietrich
Big
Wise,
Mike.
Big Mike, like when the guys who have been through it and know what it takes to win in the NFL are sitting up there and saying we have to do a better job as players and execute the plan we're given and it will be more successful. And then Hunter Henry goes up there yesterday, and you and I love Hunter, so one of the best teammates that we've ever had. I respect him, and if it's coming from his mouth, I'm going to trust it. And I think the media needs to do a better job of trusting that as opposed to, and we kind of talked about this too. This hot seat was kind of media generated. Greg Bedard goes out, throws out a report, and then everybody picks up on it. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at a one and done. And to me, I'm thinking to myself, well, hold on. All these media people expected him to have a down year anyways. You're rebuilding a franchise. The Patriots were not, and I know people gave me a lot of shit last week for what I said on this podcast. I was not blaming Bill for any of this year's results. Gerard is a man of his own and can coach and take accountability for all those things. All I was trying to point out is it's not like Gerard took over after we won the Super Bowl in 2018 and Bill said, I'm riding off in the sunset
Yeah.
after winning the Super Bowl and took over this great team. The fact is the Patriots won 4 games last year. Now, could they have maybe done some better job in the offseason acquiring players and those things? Sure. But it's basically the same team. You swapped out quarterbacks. Drake's a rookie. He's learning through some of these things. I think you at least owe it to Gerard, if you believe in him as a coach, to let him have a full offseason, have a full season of learning of what it takes to be a head coach. Now they need to nail free agency in the draft to really flip this roster and get some key players, but I don't think they're that far away. I mean, when I go down the roster, there's 15 to 20 guys I feel pretty good about coming back and being the core group. And as you and I know, every year there's about 30 to 40 new players on a team between the draft, free agency, rookie free agents. So there's nothing in my mind that says to me that if you make the right moves in the free agency, you can't turn this thing around pretty
No.
quick.
And look, I mean, I don't think we were picked to win one game. We won three. Is it good enough? Hell no. But like look, it just is part of being in this business, and Gerard knows that because he was a player in it, and thankfully when he was a player, he had a lot of success. So it makes it easier. I've seen both sides of it. Before we started struggling, the worst media session I ever had was when Tom ripped his hand open against the Jaguars, and literally, uh, that it happened on Thursday, right? So this was my
Yeah, there was
this was
group
my
run on
first year
Thursday, I
being
think.
a.
Yeah. No, it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday because
I thought it was
I
Thursday.
remember thinking it was Wednesday because
Uh,
by Friday he was back out wearing the red gloves. Yeah, because we did group run on
yeah,
Wednesdays.
yeah,
Thursdays
yeah,
was
yeah.
third
You're right.
down.
Uh,
Yeah. Trust me, I didn't sleep very much that week,
well,
so
I
I
had to
remember
go to
pretty much
the.
every
I had to
detail.
go. I don't think he practiced much on Friday. I think he threw like 5 balls
No.
from the shotgun because he didn't
Yep.
take a snap.
Yep.
Because I remember his big concern was taking snaps from me, and so
Snaps. Yep.
Saturday after walkthrough, we spent about an hour in the weight room turf area taking snaps and
Mm-hmm.
fixing everything. He changed his grips, all kind of things. And but that Friday I had to go do my media press conference, and I was a first year captain, third year player in the league, like so scared that like I would say anything that Bill would be like,
Yeah.
you asshole. So I was just like, they
Yep.
were asking me questions, and I was just kind of trying to give them the best Bill Belichick Patriot answer I could give. And they were like, well, David, like you're the center. You must know how like, he does things like he touches you. Like, did he take any snaps from you? And I'm like, I take snaps from all the quarterbacks, like that was like always my go-to
Yeah. Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
And I was just
Yeah.
like so
Yep.
nervous. And I remember watching Devin being like, hey, like what how did Tom look out there? He's like, I think Tom looks great. He's got a great jawline. Like, and I was like, God, that's such a good answer. He's
Yeah.
done this before. But
Yeah.
it's harder. Like the types of questions you get when you're struggling are so much different than when you're winning. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy to yeah,
There's
it's
blood in the
easy to
water.
sit
There's
up
blood
there
in the
when you
water.
win and get up there and talk. Even if you are on a winning team and lose a game, sure, you might have a couple like tough questions, but like in the grand
Mm-hmm.
scheme of things, they're going to be like, oh, like bad game. They just got to right the ship. Maybe we're worried about these issues, whatever it is. And then next week you go out and have success, and it's like, oh, tell us how great this play was that you guys ran and how you guys rebounded. When you're losing, sitting up there getting asked those questions, I mean, last year was brutal for me having to go up there every week and, answer questions and talk about them. And, at the same time, like, yeah, you might have your thoughts or um, own things. You remember the Stumble Bomb, or what was his name?
Mm-hmm.
The guy that always talked to us about the media.
Oh yeah.
Boomer,
Oh,
Boomer.
Boomer. Yeah. I gotta look
He
him up
said
though.
something. He was doing press conference for 9/11, and George Bush pulled him aside and was like, you can have your own thoughts, but you're responsible for everything you say. And I've always thought about that when dealing with the media. Yeah, I might have my own thoughts or things I think, but at the same time, I'm representing our organization, Mr. Kraft, you know, Bill, Gerard, whoever, Josh, AVP, the quarterbacks, whoever. I'm representing all these people, and so it's hard getting up there and answering these questions and dealing with a lot of this stuff, especially when things aren't going right. And I think guys have tried to handle that the best way they can, but it's just one of those years. And I think the biggest thing for me, and guys is learning. We got a young football team. All right, look, you see what the results are right now. You see what we've done. All right. Now, whatever you thought you were doing that was good enough hasn't been good enough. Now, you can't change the past 14 weeks, and you only got 2 more opportunities. But guess what? You've got from January, whatever, to the season ends to call it after Labor Day to get it right and fix it and improve and grow. And hopefully you want to change the narrative around this football team. And, I know that's something that's always been important to me. It was an important reason, why I came back this year was to try to help and develop that with guys, and, knowing my windows are short. So what can I do to help, one, help our football team, but help improve guys around me I've had a lot of success, and I've also had a lot of not success the last few years. So how can I try to help those guys, and that's a lot of the reason why I'm still trying to be around and do things. So, I think it's such an important off season for guys and the coaching staff and everything, like you said. And hopefully, a lot of the young players can take a lot of the lessons that they've learned this year. Obviously it's important to get away for a minute, take a break, but like, let's go, like wake up and let's fix this stuff and let's get this ship corrected. Because we always got told, oh, the Patriots aren't no fun. Well, damn, I had a lot of fun winning. I'll tell you that much. Sitting on those boats, sitting in the ring ceremony, I had damn sure had some fun. And to me, that's what's important. Like winning, when it all comes down to it, we've all had a lot of memories, Hoy, but what makes, I think, a lot of those memories even special is going through and having success with, guys like me and you or whoever, Joe and Ted and Shaq and Nate Solder and Marcus Cannon. We have a bond because we went through all these hard things and accomplished the greatest feat in this game, and together.
Yeah, the real fun
Yes.
is the winning. And look, was there days that it was tough? And Bill would admit it. Look, I know playing for me is not easy. How many times did he tell us
Well,
that?
like once a
But
year.
I would say this, and right,
Thanksgiving.
and you
Maybe
you-
Christmas.
But for you, that was your experience. For me, that was my experience. And then I left and played a lot of different places. And yeah, we had fun on Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, and we got out early on Fridays and all of those things. But we didn't always win on Sundays, and we didn't win anything meaningful. And that to me, as my career went on, and I had the opportunity to come back and play, I realized like, and my wife and I, we were just looking at photos from the Super Bowl win the other day because we were just looking at like how much the kids have grown because we thought they were old when that happened, and now they're actually getting older. And that, like, she was like, that was one of the most fun days of our lives. And that to me, like, you have to make that commitment and say we're going to sacrifice a little bit of that fun during the week to make sure that we're having fun on Sundays. I do want to mention it's Admiral John Stufflebeam.
He's
Who would
goat.
come and talk to us on how to handle the media. He was the greatest. And the one thing that I always took away from his talks were this was a guy who had to get up there and speak after 9/11, for the Pentagon. And he said a few things, and he remember his story about George Bush would pull him aside and say, "Hey, Boomer, you can think whatever you want, but you're responsible for whatever
That's what I
words come
just
out of
said,
your
Hoy,
mouth."
but go ahead.
And oh, sorry, I was looking it up, so we'll have to edit that a little bit.
No,
I was
leave it
trying-
in.
I wanted
Leave
to
it
make
in
sure
for
we
the
got his
people
name.
so you can see you trying
Okay.
to steal my thunder.
I was on
Yeah.
Wikipedia. I was in Wikipedia looking up Admiral John Stufflebeam, and it's funny because I actually got to, obviously he was here talking to the Patriots, but he would come to other teams that I was on. So whenever I would see him, we would always catch up. But he was awesome on just teaching players and coaches for really how to handle the media because they're going to come at you to get you to say things so they can write this juicy story.
Look, the media, you're obviously a media member now, and I think you have a different perspective because you were a player. And I see that a lot of times with players, they have different perspectives than guys who aren't. And look, the media's job is to sell a story. That's their one job. And there's really guys that are really good at it. And, and look, a lot of it's opinions and people hear those opinions and take them as facts. And, but part of me, I do love playing in New England because of the media, if this makes sense, because people care. And you can turn on, and what's also cool is we've got, 3 other great sports franchises, right? Like Celtics, coming off a championship, Red Sox, one of the greatest, franchises, Bruins, one of the greatest franchises, and then, what the Patriots have done. So, but you turn on 985 or whatever, it's like, 80% Patriots, 5% this, 5%, whatever it is. And I love that because people care. And I love that, our fans, I don't love that they're upset, but I love that they care. And yeah, I love
Passionate.
that because coming from a team like Georgia, it was the same way. And, sometimes, you've been in stadiums where you see it's half empty and whatever. Like I've never experienced that in New England. Yeah, I've experienced some lows, them booing us, screaming at us. And that's their right. They pay their good, hard earned money that they go out and earn to come see us on Sunday, and we don't uphold our end of the bargain. So I get it. But, it's the media is an interesting thing, man. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I kind of joked with those guys last night, and I said we were sitting there watching Gerard's press conference, and I said, well, you had Bill Belichick for all those years, and people complained about his press conferences. You had Gerard, who came in and was a little more candid and said some things he had to walk back as he was learning how to deal with this as the head coach. And now you've used it against him, and look at now he's given a very Belichick esque press conference. Like I would ask him a question, like I got to watch the film on that one. We got to watch the film, obviously. And it was like he said I got to watch the film on that one at least 5 times, which is a smart
And
way to
true.
handle it. But as right, but as the media, like you may have squashed a good thing by coming after him and saying, oh, he shouldn't have said that. Walk those things back because now Gerard's a smart guy. He's going to learn very quickly, and he's going to say, look, if you're gonna use my candidness against me, then I'm not going to be candid with you anymore. So, be careful what you wish for when it comes to that. Let's transition. Obviously, a hard fought loss and no moral victories, but maybe something to build on with the Chargers coming to town. They got to fly all
Uh,
the way across the country.
Short
It's going to be
trip.
cold. Maybe have a chance to
Well, they
sneak up on
played.
these
Did they
guys. A
play
short trip,
Friday?
like you said. They played
They did. Okay.
Saturday.
So they got a normal
Yeah,
week.
Saturday night.
No, they Chargers played the Broncos on Thursday. Night
Thursday
Football.
night.
Thursday
So
night football.
they're
Sorry.
long week.
So they got time, but they probably had the weekend off. I think I saw that Harbaugh gave them off till Monday. So who knows if they're flying out Friday, Thursday. So look, I mean, you take what you did well in this past game against Buffalo and eliminate those turnovers and try to come out here and you got two more home games and there's a possibility that Buffalo may not be if the Chiefs secure that number one seed. There's a chance that Buffalo comes in that last week and maybe rest their starters a little bit, so you have a chance to maybe finish the season at home with two wins. We're gonna because they're coming to town. Our throwback segment is the 2018 AFC divisional game, playoff game, which was that was I think David. We've kind of touched on it. We kind of sat there and this is where we found our identity. We became more of a run
It's a good
focused
week to
team.
become a run focused team too.
It was because they were playing like
Yeah,
dime the whole game. Remember AP? I love AP. Was playing
they
like
had like two
middle
safety.
linebacker
I
for
think
them.
all their linebackers were hurt. They might have had one linebacker who was like a backup special teams guy. It was all DBs in the box. So, I remember we ran like you know, I, we called it sprint ball. So it's like an outside zone, but we had a tight end, fullback. So we're in regular personnel, and I'm looking up and we're like pointing the mic, and I'm like, that's a
Sure.
DB. All right. I'm like blocking this DB like 30 yards downfield. Sony breaks a big run. It was a great game. It was, it was one of those games where just felt like everything was going, we just were responding really well. We ran a play, called blast, which is like a wham scheme. So that means like the fullback, which could have been James or Gronk. I think it was James. Is like we're skipping a D lineman, and he's let him come free, and
basically.
he's going to trap him. And I never forget they ran this like messed up stunt, and it's one of those hardest plays for young players to figure out. And we weren't young at the time, but it's one of those where you're just not calling it and being like, hey, whatever they run, we're good with this. If there's certain plays like different type of run plays, like you can run it into a pressure. You can, it doesn't matter what front, we're good. That's not one of these plays. These are a play you call maybe once or twice a game. We ran it once against in the opening drive against the Rams and the Super Bowl that week. It was a good run. Like it's not a gadget play, but you want a certain look, and you can't run it. You're not going to run it, 6 times a game. Like
Yeah,
you
it's like once
usually
you
do
got
it
'em,
early.
you got 'em,
You
and
want to
you-
do it
yeah.
early, and it's just kind of one of those things. And it's just a good play to keep the defense off guard. And they ran like a line stunt, and it was so messed up. but everyone responded perfectly. I think I ended up taking the blast guy. Joe went behind me, got the mic, and James read us perfectly to go to the will. And we got to the sideline, and Dante was like looking at the picture, looking at us, and he was wanting to cuss us out, I think.
He was probably so proud.
Yeah,
he was like
looking, and he could tell it was messed up. And he's like looking at us, and he's like, "What happened?" And I was like telling him, and he's like, "How in the did y'all do that?" And we were like, "I don't know," but I think that was a great it was such a small, meaningless play, but a great representation of that football team. Just everyone responding the right way. A lot of guys that had played together for a long time, and even if it wasn't perfect, like everyone knew how to respond and how to, make it right. Even though it wasn't, call it a scripted look on a play we really wanted scripted. So, I just think that was it's such a small play in that game, but such a great representation of that football team. Sony ran wild. Julian had his Julian game. Julian was such a mismatch for guys, and Josh did a great job of getting him in a lot of those mismatches, whether it be on a linebacker or, with a.
He had a great route against, I think it was against Derwin James on a safety, where we kind of put the receivers over in slot, and we knew based on that formation, we would get Julian matched up one-on-one on the safety because the corner wasn't going to travel. And so just things like that, and he made a tremendous catch, and Julian had an incredible playoff run that year and capped by Super Bowl MVP. But it was just, to me, like we've talked about this before because we talked about the Miami Miracle. There was a little bit lull at the end of that season where we lost some tough games, and it was like, all right, and you've said it, like, what's our identity going to be going forward? And then we played the Jets and the Bills at the end of that year, and it was more about the run game, and we were playing in the cold weather, and the Chargers came in, and I remember that first drive, it was like quick pass. I actually think we may have ran the little swing screen.
I think we ran it to Sweet Feet, maybe?
Yes, that was the lateral fumble against the Bills. I think that might have been the first play of that game. And then we had a few other quick hitters, because that's like the infamous clip of Bosa.
He's getting mad.
He gets to Tom, and he's like, quit throwing it so fast, Tom. Because Tom was like, remember he used to say, like, hey, boys, ball's coming out fast today.
Well, they had Ingram and Bosa on their two edge rushers.
Yep.
So, we knew it was going to be one of those type of games. And we knew next week was going to be just as bad. Chris Jones, Frank Clark. And I think, until we played those two playoff games without giving up a sack. And, is that just the O-line? No. It really all ties in together. And that's, part of we always say it's the greatest team sport, right? And it went from Josh setting us up, putting us in the right positions, to us executing certain situations, to then Tom, knowing like, hey, it's 3-step ball out, or all right, now it's, first and 10, we're going to run a play action. I can get back to my drop, set up, they're not going to be ready for this. And, it's all those things that tie in together. It's never just, hell, the O-line, they dropped back 65 times and the O-line just was a stonewall. No, it's all those things that go into it. Coordinator, understanding problems, issues, who may need help, who doesn't need help, or what our problems are. We want to slide to this guy. We want to get to this guy. We want to chip this guy. All right, like it's 2nd and 9. Let's not try to get a first down here. Let's get it to half. Let's, run a quick play. Let's play from 3rd and 4 instead of 3rd and 9. And obviously that doesn't always work. There's incompletions, whatever. They make good plays. You got to execute when your number's called. But, it was just, we were really good at all playing together, playing within the scheme. No one feeling like they had to make this hero play. Like, if we all just do our job, right? Like, Sony reads it right, hits it right. Like, then there's going to be an opportunity to make a guy miss and make that 40-yard run. Or Julian, like, you run the right route, right depth, O-line holds up. All right, it's an 8-yard pass that he turns into 22, and I think that's what we did such a great job of, as a whole. And then obviously went on to Kansas City, which we talked about, and on to another Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was a great first game for that playoff run. I just remember feeling like, wow, if we continue to do this, we were kind of firing on all cylinders, the run game, the pass game.
It felt like a wave.
But it was funny because it did, but it was kind of funny because with Phillip Rivers, like I remember him throwing a touchdown pass like late in the 3rd or 4th quarter, being like, man, like you just never know. Like Phillip Rivers is going to sling it around, but we end up securing that win. And then next week was, and we've talked about that game, was probably my favorite game as an NFL
But
player. So it was a great run,
before we
great
move on,
memories.
let's give a little shout out to Hunter Henry that game. Dude came off, tore his
yeah.
ACL in
Hunt dog.
OTAs. That was his first game back.
Yep.
I remember, Bill always talked about him, and but I remember I was watching this guy because Bill was like, "We'll see what this guy does." Blah blah blah. Heard all the the whole spiel. And I remember watching Hunter out there. He's in a Don Joy, which we used to have to wear in practice, and everyone hated him. Everyone bitched and moaned about him. And so I was like, looking at Hunter run, and I was like, man, this dude's struggling. Like, he does not look great. But at the time, didn't know what would happen 3 years later, I guess. But at the time, I was like, hats off to that guy. Like, that dude's out there, laying it on the line, probably feels terrible. That's a football player right there. Like, laying it on the line one more time for his team, doing what's best for the team, even though it's probably not great for him. So, shout out to Hunter. It shows a lot about his character and toughness, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why he's one of my favorite teammates. I mean, just the type of quality. I have one of the funniest Hunter Henry stories. So remember, he would bring. Did we? Oh, we already told this on when Hunter came in, but like he would bring Bill would bring Hunter's high school coach.
I can't talk about him this morning.
And he's like sitting there and he's like, man, I never seen a tight end make plays like this, because we were watching film with Gronk, and Bill leans over. He's like, didn't you coach Hunter Henry? I mean, he's like a Pro Bowl tight end in the league. What do you mean you've never seen anything like this? So it's actually pretty funny that we had Hoop on last week. The Patriots tight end position has been in good hands for a long time. So yeah, Hoop's doing better.
Great play to hold on to that. Gosh.
For sure. So, all right, let's bring in producer Danny, the mailbag. And I think we kind of got to go with this first one after what we just heard David describe. He kind of already gave the answer, but maybe he's got another one in mind too.
Yeah, well, I'm glad the mailbag was a success last week and people sent in their questions. It was good to see. Keep firing them in there, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube comments, but keep firing them in. Yeah, let's go on this first one from Wilder Hume 1527. Okay, ready? Here we go. I and everyone else who is not a casual fan knows that one of the most severely overlooked and underappreciated parts of an NFL team is the offensive line. Thinking back on your career, DA, are there any certain plays or blocks in particular that stick out to you as your favorites?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ones. Probably some that would seem more minuscule. I mean, some of the plays in that Falcons Super Bowl one I can think of was the direct snap to James White on the 2-point play. Probably told this before, but we ran it once in practice on Friday. I snapped it to frickin' the next county over, and I was like, well, that plays out of the playbook, and really, messed that one up. And then we get in the game, critical moment, execute it perfectly, and we kind of bowl in the end zone. That one's up there. Kansas City to win the game. We ran a play. It was like a lead play on the goal line, and it was one of those with Dante. We had, I ended up talking about, I had an idea how I wanted to do it, and, just thought it was better the way I thought to do it than the way he wanted to do it. And one of those, he kind of let me, I kind of explained it to him and let me kind of do it. And like we said, Dante was so great about that. And, when they line up in like a 6-2 goal lines, the center's technically uncovered, but everyone's splits are so tight that you got 2 shades on you, so that's 320 pounders on you, and you got to try to get through. And the one guy that's really not accounted for on the play is the backside linebacker, and he's really hard to get to, because you're not able to just, in reality, like, yeah, you want to drive everyone off the ball and dump them 8 yards, but that doesn't happen in the NFL. And so it's really hard to get through. So I had this idea of working through the backside guy and just laying out and cutting him. And it was, a critical point in the play. No one really even talked about it. It's not a huge block. You would never notice it. And hell, he probably would have scored even if I didn't. But, got through, cut him down. And that was right after the clip of me waving bye to the fans. And that's probably why I was so excited, because I thought it was a huge block. And, Dante actually pointed out in the offensive meeting, and that made me pretty proud. Had some fun ones on screens against Cleveland in 21. We ran a screen. I think I blocked 2 people. a big screen. I was pretty excited about that because they took away the cut rule. I don't know, man. There's a lot of great blocks. A lot of fun ones, but it's usually the ones that are more meaningless, I would say, that people don't realize because they're harder and they're more in critical situations.
Hoy, was there ever a moment where through a screen pass or maybe a handoff from the running back, cut it back to the opposite field and you had to maybe like chip a guy? Did you ever get your shoulder in there?
Yeah, actually, surprisingly enough, in 2020 when I had to play that game against Kansas City, David wasn't there, but thankfully I had my boy James
Broke
Ferentz
thumb.
to play center for me. We ran a reverse, and when we run this reverse, like the quarterback's job is to make sure like you get the reverse going, and usually the defensive end sees the action, he goes down the line, so you can kind of like get out there and maybe block a DB. I had to block a defensive end. I actually concussed
Oh
him.
yeah, Hoy.
So yeah, I hit this dude pretty hard. Looking back, it was pretty stupid of me because I led with my like right
No.
shoulder and like my throwing arm. Like you always are like, okay, if I'm gonna block somebody, you go with your left. And back in college, I actually threw a great block on a cut black play. Javon Ringer was our running back against Michigan, and he ran like a sweep left, and he came all the way back to the right where I had been carried out my fake, and I threw a good block, and he went for like 60 yards. So I've had my moments. I think I can't remember, and maybe David, you'll remember, because I feel like sitting in a team meeting after we won a game and Dante like kind of making fun of you guys because the O line made like a great block. And you guys were like celebrating with each other because the block it might, and honestly it might have been the blast play that you guys worked together, because I remember thinking like it's so funny, the little quirks of the offensive line, like it might have been a 5 yard gain, but you guys blocked a tough look so well that you guys are like high fiving each other as you're going back to the huddle. I
It
always
might have been. I
appreciated
think that
because
was
you're
the
right.
last play, but I think it was 18 against the Bears because that was another
Yeah,
one.
that might
Dante
have been
came
it.
to the sideline. He goes, "How the fuck did y'all do that?" And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, we always got a kick out of
I
that.
mean, yeah,
seeing you,
it's
like,
something
you know,
with an
for
O line. Like anytime you have a good block, like it doesn't seem like a big thing, but you just know you're doing your little part to help the team, and especially when when you guys work together and it works out, there's nothing like it. And so there's
right.
and especially when early in my career, like I said, we had a lot of the same cast of characters. We were best of friends, same age. We're growing up together in the league, and put a lot of time in with each other. So nothing better than that.
Yeah, did you happen to see the Hard Knocks clip where Burrow's asking the guy, he's like, "Is offensive line fun?" And the guy's like, "Nah, not really." He's like, "Yeah, I saw Ted over there. He's always so high strung." Because
Oh,
Ted would be like, "Huddle," and he was so intense. And Burrow was kind of jibing him a little bit, but then the guy, and I can't remember who it was. He's like, "You know what? When we get a really good block and it's like a unit thing, like that just
being
makes
an
our
offensive
day."
lineman
So
is very
it
much
is,
like being a father.
yeah.
And if people have kids, then you know what it's like to play O line. If not, wait, you'll see.
All right, last mailbag question here from Carlos Pats Talk on Twitter. He's a good follow, good curation of Patriots news and all that. But what was your lowest point in your career, and how did you push through it?
Oh man,
Start with you, Da.
I wish there was only one. And I think that's what people don't realize. And sometimes I try to let young players know, like, yo, whatever you're going through, like, remember what you're doing. Also, like you have a bad game, like you're like, man, this is the lowest. People are like, all right, yeah, but at the same time, fans don't feel bad for you for certain things, like. We're getting paid a lot of money to play a game, and there's a lot of people out there that are putting their life on the line, working their ass off every day, just to provide for their families. So, but I think some of the lowest points in my career, I would say, one, getting benched my rookie year was really hard on me. We were 10-0, felt like I was playing, pretty good as a rookie. We had a bad game against Buffalo on Monday night. I'd just done my first production meeting, which I couldn't believe they let me do. So that's before you play the games. You meet with at the time it was like John Gruden and stuff. So you meet with them, they talk to you. And I just was like, man, this is awesome. Like, I just never thought I'd do anything like that. And I couldn't believe rookies don't get to do those a lot of times. So I was able to do that. And then I get benched, and it was just real humbling, and but like the grand scheme of things, everything was going to be all right, even if I, whatever. Like, I did more than I thought, and I thought maybe that was it, and but was able to overcome that. Say another low point definitely had to be the blood clots. That was very just because it wasn't football. That was some real life stuff, and it was we didn't know what happened. I was in the hospital for like 5 days. Uh, I didn't know, like, am I okay? Like, I was basically a lab rat for those days in the hospital. I remember they would like come in after breakfast, and it's in the hospital, you can't walk anywhere. So they're like putting me in wheelchairs on a bed. And I'm like, you guys understand I was doing practice like 2 days ago, playing a game a day ago.
Yeah, it's probably
But
some
like,
scary shit.
I can walk. And they're like, you're not allowed to. And I was like, I'm not dead here. Um, and so, I was doing, like, we were talking about cancers, all kind of stuff. So it was like just a really wild couple days. And, I just didn't know what was going to happen. If I was going to play again, just what was going to happen with my career and, life, I guess. So, and then I think, there's been a lot of, low points during the football career. But like I said, like that stuff, man, that's trivial in the grand scheme of life. And maybe when I was younger, I thought those were going to be, the death of me, but those are just trivial. And I think the biggest thing is like, you got to use everything as a learning curve. When I had the blood clots, once I got out of, throwing myself a pity party, like, got home from the hospital, like 3 days later, I went back to work and started to find something to do. And, Dante was great. Let me do third down presentations, things I thought were important in the game plan. So I was watching film in a different way, learning a lot of stuff. So I mean, I think the biggest thing is, you can sit there and feel sorry for yourself. And look, that's human nature. It happens. But eventually, and hopefully sooner rather than later, you gotta get your ass going. You gotta get up and find some purpose in something that you're doing. And also remember why you're doing things in football. That's a big thing. We always talk about, your why. Remember your why. And I think that's something that's constantly changing, why you're playing this game, and I think, Hoy, you probably, you know, can speak to that. Like, all right, you're playing to win the Super Bowl, and then you do that. And then, are you playing to represent, your family and friends? And, are you playing so your kids can, see, a lot of the hard work and how to accomplish things? Are you playing for money? Are you playing for fame? Like, whatever it is, I guess there's good and bad reasons, but like, that's important too. And you got to remember that in those low times. And also remember how blessed you are. Like, we're playing a kid's game. We're 30, year old men. Obviously there's younger guys, but at the end of the day, like I said, like, you get to go play a game every day. And yeah, it's hard, it's tough. A lot of people don't understand. But at the same time, you're not out there laying bricks. You're not out there fighting fires. You're not out there, sitting in an office all day. You're not out there, serving our country. Like, you're playing a child's game that 8-year-olds play in the backyard every day after school. And you've got millions of people watching you. You make money doing it. And, you have all the greatest support system in the world to try to help you succeed. So you got to remember how blessed you are and how fortunate you are and why you're doing things. And, I'd say there's low parts in the everyday season, like being hurt for a couple of weeks, like that's a low point. Coming back, not playing as good as you think, that's a low point. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not huge, and you gotta have a great foundation. The Bible talks about house built on sand or a house built on a strong foundation. So I think that's a huge, huge thing I've always thought about and tried to think about during those times in my career.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're right. It's I think football and Tom put it great in his Hall of Fame speech. We were all there. It was a great night for all of us. But he kind of just said football is hard, just like as in life, and you gotta overcome things. You gotta handle adversity, and it was pretty cool how he's like, if you look at all of my teammates here tonight, no one kind of personifies that better than them, because no one's going to go through and have a perfect career. You're never going to have a perfect year or whatever it might be. And I was going to say for you, probably similar to me, like lowest point in my career, before my career even started, didn't get drafted. I mean, I remember sitting there thinking like, oh my God, I put all my eggs in this basket and it's not going to work out. And then I got to come here and play for the Patriots, and I had a great 3 first years. But then the lowest point of after my career started was getting released. I had just been, I was a restricted free agent. They put a second round tender on me. I was going to finally make some real money. And then after the last preseason game, they cut me, and I was out of football for 10 weeks. So you talk about a low point in your career. I was literally practicing with my high school, their high school team. I would go, and my high school coach, Chuck Kyle, he's a legend in Ohio. He would let me come down, and I would run the scout team 7-on-7, and I would throw to the receivers, and that was my way to stay in shape. And so for 10 weeks, I lived in my in-laws' house. Garrett was just born that year. Like it was me, Lauren, and Garrett living in
Well,
my
at
in-laws'
least you had
house.
some help, I guess.
Thinking like, yeah, I mean, but that's where, like you said, you learn these lessons. Like you have a good foundation, people you can lean on, and then I got a call to go work out for the Steelers, and this is why I always will have a soft spot, a soft place in my heart for them. Growing up in Cleveland, I hated the Steelers, but they were the first team that got me back in the league. I was there for 3 weeks, and I came to really appreciate Coach Tomlin, which has been great to watch him on this Hard Knocks in season, because it validates everything I remember playing there and learning from him and seeing the way he coaches. But that was 10 weeks of not knowing if you're ever going to get back in the NFL was rough. And then I would say dealing with my ACL injury. So I ended up going to be the starter in Cleveland, win the first 2 games, and we're playing on Thursday night. This is my hometown. I mean, my high school is 5 minutes away from the stadium. This is like what every kid dreams of. And I go out on Thursday night and I blow out my ACL. And I had never, this is the craziest thing, all the years playing football, I'd never had a severe injury that ever kept me out from ever playing a game.
No, I mean, I would say not playing a game, because I've had thumb, concussion, kidney,
Right.
but this is the first one
Yep.
that's ended a season for me.
Yeah, so that was my first experience. And back then, I mean, now you tear your ACL, all right, he'll be back in 6 months. No one thinks of it. But I would say back then it was still kind of on the verge of like, man, this could be a lengthy recovery. And I just remember being like, this is the opportunity you wanted as a kid. Like, you got to do everything you can in this rehab process. And there was a lot of people I leaned on. Obviously, I had met Alex being up here in New England. So I hooked him up with our trainers in Cleveland, and he would kind of give feedback. And we actually played the Patriots that year, and I traveled with the team, came and saw Alex, and Gordon was the guy, the athletic trainer. Gordon was the Browns guy, and he was super involved and helped me get back and just super motivated. And then there was other times, like you said, getting benched. I remember being benched in Houston after the first week of the season. I didn't even play bad. And I remember thinking like, man, this was my last chance to be a starter. Now it's over. But then, opportunity rolled back around. I became the starter again. We went to the playoffs, and then I played horrendous. So it's just the ups and downs. And I had a great sports psychologist. And I think good to talk about you and I involved in this app, Optimize Mind Performance, that we got involved in, because it was something that for me, I'm of the older generation. You grin and bear it. You be tough. You handle. You don't have emotion about these things. But Optimize Mind Performance, an app that was started by an Australian cricket player, Jack Preddy, and we got involved along with a few other guys, because to me, I noticed that this is the thing that can help you. We train our bodies, we train our minds, but we don't really train our emotions to handle the ups and downs of, let's just call it, competitive sports. And so this app is a sports mental health training app. You can go on there, you can listen to great sports psychs. They have meditations you can do. I kind of compare it to Calm, but geared towards sports. And it was something I looked at. I was like, man, I wish I would have had this through some tough times. Now, along the way, we had some sports psychologists that you could go talk to and do some things. But just having that at a young age would have established that routine, the same way that you go into a gym and you train your body. You got to train your mind, you got to train your soul on how to deal with those things. And I think, like what you said, the adversity gives you great perspective. And one of the sports psychs that I talked about after being benched in Houston was Dr. Kevin Elko. And he goes, if this is the worst thing that ever happens in your life, you're going to have a pretty good life. And it just gave me such great perspective. Like you just mentioned, all of those things. And in the moment, you kind of get caught up because it's all about, how is this going to affect me? How is it going to affect my family? But in the grand scheme of things, it allows you to put things in perspective. And I think that's what learning lessons in life is all about. Is you may think a certain way, and then something happens to you, and you respond to it, and you say, "Oh, you know what? I know how to handle that a little bit better now." And I think football, of all the sports, teaches you that more than anything, because you go through a lot of ups and downs, tough times, but you're doing it with people that you care about. You're doing it together, and I think that's the ultimate life lesson
Yeah, I
that
mean,
comes
I
from
think
football.
also you talk about perspective. Like that's why those Tuesday charity events are so incredible because, you're coming off a game, you give up 2 sacks, you throw 2 interceptions. All right, you still went home to your family. You walked in your door. Maybe now, if you were still playing, Garrett would be like, "Dad, you sucked." But probably,
Oh yeah, he
probably
touched me.
younger in
Yes.
your career, he was just like, "Dad, like happy to see you."
Yeah.
And I think you go and you're feeling bad for yourself because you had a bad game or whatever, let the team down, which is tough and it sucks. But then you could walk into a children's hospital and you see these kids, or you go to a homeless shelter or whatever it may be that you do, and you're just like, all right, like this is ridiculous. Grow up. Like, you got kids fighting for their lives, parents, being helpless, watching their kids fight, and it just gives you great perspective. So,
All right, that was a great mailbag segment, Carlos. Thank you for sending those questions. Got a couple good answers out of these guys. DA gave a couple good hype speeches. Those are beautiful. So keep sending in the questions. Again, Twitter, DMs. We have Instagram. You can comment on our page. You can comment on our YouTube channel. Keep sending the questions in. We love it. But there was some good football over the weekend that wasn't just the NFL. We had college football playoffs, the first ever 12-team playoff kicked off. And these games weren't great. There were a couple blowouts. I mean, every game, all four of them, there was the closest spread, I think, was like 8 points. So they're all touchdown favorites, and all the favorites won. But I guess let's kick off with Texas. Clemson might have been the best game to watch. Texas ended up winning 38-24 over Clemson. That was the 5 versus 12 matchup. But yeah, let's start with that game. Do you guys watch that one?
thank God for
Yeah.
NFL football is all I got to say. That's the only thing that saved all the football we had to watch, was there was actually good NFL games while these were going on.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's hard, right? I think that was the one where there was actually Clemson ACC championship champions, correct? Like they were going to be in no matter what. So these other ones were the selection committee. It's just one of those things. Like David, as you and I know, football on any given Sunday, college maybe not so much, but it's hard to project this out if you're not just going off of conference champions. So to me, like you just said, there's not a lot of parity in college football, but when you have teams that are going in, and to me, it was kind of this year was of college football, other than Oregon, it was kind of a toss up, right? So you got to pick accordingly, and I don't think you know how teams are going to respond, like SMU going up to Penn State in the cold. Like when you're selecting that game, I don't think you just got to go with what's on paper. You can't factor in a young quarterback, the conditions, all of those things. You got to go with what your gut is. Obviously, this Texas one was the easy one to decide because Clemson won the ACC, so that you knew that they were going to be in.
Yeah.
I just
Go
think
ahead,
before
Dan.
you DA, I just think it's absurd. Why was Clemson the 12 seed if they win the ACC? They beat
Right.
SMU, and then SMU's the 11th seed. That makes absolutely no sense.
agree with you on
Yeah,
that.
I think they got I think a couple of things. Originally, when they said the 12-team playoff, I was like, that's dumb. I just don't think I thought you were going to have these issues. And then kind of watching college football, I was like, well, I guess this is going to be interesting. But I think the reality reared its head this weekend. Like, there's just not enough parity in college football like there is in the NFL. And also, I think it's very strange. Yeah, I think you should if you win your conference, you should get in, obviously.
Right.
But then just like put them the ranking system still messed up to me and how they did that, and
It's a learning curve. I mean, I think there's going to be adjustments along the way because you just have to, like. And the problem is with the conferences now, it's basically 2 power conferences.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what
Big
it is.
Ten, SEC.
Yeah, and then the other ones are, they have their teams, but like how do you, like you just said, Danny, how do they win the ACC and they're the 12, like the 11 seed or whatever it was. So it's I think it's going to be a learning curve. They're going to develop it. I actually think if you're going to do it like this, you might as well make it a 16-team playoff.
Well, we grew up in the BCS era, Hawaii.
Yep.
And I would say most of the time when the championship came, you were like, these are the best two teams.
Mm-hmm.
But that third team's kind of interesting,
Exactly.
like it's like, Ohio State or Georgia and LSU play each other. They're both undefeated. Georgia loses in a close game. They play Ohio State in the national championship. And then you're like, man, that Georgia team, man, that's a ball team, or whoever it may be. I'm just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
because you're basically letting it come down to one game, the
Yeah, and
SEC championship, and it's knocking somebody out.
That was something that was super special about college football, because you were like, all right, man, we're Alabama, we're a great team. We lose to Texas A&M or whatever, our season's over.
Yep.
Like there might be nothing to play for. So every week was like this wild, game of emotion. And, I had a feeling this was going to happen. I did think it was going to be interesting because I watched a lot of SEC football this year, and the SEC was wild. I mean, you had teams,
more so than any year of years past. It seemed.
I would say
league.
so. Usually in the SEC, you were like, Alabama's the best, Georgia's pretty good, or Alabama's the best, LSU's pretty good. This year, it was chaos. It felt like the NFL, just everybody beating everybody. You even had teams like Alabama, South Carolina, that could have made a push to get in the playoffs. But unfortunately, I was excited, but I thought this was going to happen, and it did. And I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know enough about Arizona State to really tell you what this is going to look like next week. But I don't know enough about Boise State.
DA, to the point of you saying that the ranking system is all messed up, it's like these games aren't going to be better than last week because Texas is playing Arizona State. Like the Arizona State should not have had a bye week. Like Texas should have.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also the thing in college football. There's so many teams. It's hard to get in the NFL, like you can watch, like I didn't watch much of that Rams Jets game, but like I could have told you, like I like the Rams because I've watched enough of them, know what kind of team they are, whatever. But there's a lot of these teams I haven't watched. I haven't watched a Boise State game. I haven't watched an Arizona State game. I've watched a few Notre Dame, obviously all of Georgia. Watched a little Penn State, Ohio State. So, I think like this will be interesting. I think the best game is going to be that Georgia Notre Dame game.
Scared?
Ohio State, Oregon rematch. I mean, it was a close game.
Ohio State, Oregon. I didn't see that they were playing Ohio State, Oregon. That's going to be a good game. This Texas, Arizona State, and then the Boise State,
Penn
State. Like, we'll see. Like, we'll see if those two teams are for real now.
Yeah.
Are you nervous about Notre Dame in Georgia?
No. I mean, yes and no. I thought they were doing like home and away until the semifinals. So I was like, oh yeah, like we're going to get everyone at home, that's going to be great. I think that also, I will say, I think it would have been interesting if they've all played at neutral sites.
I thought aesthetically that might have changed. Fun. Like cool to watch. It was cool.
No, I thought it was cool.
I agree. I'm just saying in the product, if they played in, I mean, that's a huge advantage, especially in college football with a lot of these teams. But
to your point, David, like you get a bye, but you don't get the home field advantage in your first game because it's a neutral site bowl game, basically.
I would, especially Georgia and the situation they're in with Beck and Gunnar Stockton, like I'll take that bye. Like let this kid, the offense, get familiar with them, the coaches. Not that they need to get familiar with them, but it's different when you're calling plays for different quarterbacks. So, I like Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, though. We beat Notre Dame down there when it mattered one time, so let's try to do it again.
Notre Dame opened up as the favorites, 1.5-point favorites. Then quickly the bettors flipped to that. And now Georgia's 1.5-point favorite. So that will be a good game.
I think that the Ohio State, those are the two games I'm really interested to watch. Is this Georgia one, obviously, and then the Ohio State, Oregon. And I do think the other two, I'm just interested to see, are these teams for real? Or are we going to get a recap of what last week was?
I think that running back at Boise State could be a huge, but the Penn State defense, and I know it's SMU and they seemed overmatched, but that Penn State defense looks legit. And we talked about Drew Alar. I don't know if it was like 2 weeks ago, but he's staying in school. I mean, this is a different era with the NIL. Like instead of guys leaving early, they're like, "Nah, I'm going to stay here and collect an extra 4 or 5 million and try to go for
I don't
a
blame
national
him.
championship and continue to develop," which I think is a great thing. But speaking of college football, did we see Bill's first signee? He went out and got himself a David Andrews from Holy Cross. That just shows how important a David Andrews-esque player. I mean,
Did I send y'all that meme I saw of that?
when he was like, just sign the fucking paper?
No, it was like my dad watching me sign the first dinner bill after I get a big boy job. Because he's like standing off to the side, like grinning, and
Oh man,
I was like, "That's
but
great."
he looks. That's how many times did he come to our team meetings in jeans and like a Patriots sweatshirt with his hair all disheveled? It's like he's grinding it down there.
Oh yeah, no, but yeah, Bill gets it. Got to go get you a center.
I just thought it was funny. It's like the most Bill Belichick move ever.
I got to see what his NIL deal is versus
go get a $50,000 from
he
Holy
gave
Cross.
The memes on Twitter of Belichick have just been
They keep them
amazing.
coming. I love them.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, college football is interesting. These games, some of them, I think Penn State, Boise State's on New Year's Eve, and then the rest of them are on New Year's Day, which will be fun. But I like the 12 team. I think hopefully the committee can get us some better games in the future. But let's flip it over to the big boys, the NFL, Week 16, the NFL.
That's all you need to know. You want to argue college football, and unfortunately, what made college football great was the pageantry, guys being proud of their schools, all that, and you're losing a lot of that with the transfer and NIL stuff. Yeah, it's still there, especially on game day, all the pageantry you get versus NFL football, but you're losing a little bit of that. But these games right here, this weekend, really to me were even some of the ones you want to call like the Chiefs-Texans game, 27-19. That's a big win in the NFL, but it was a great game to watch. We've talked about that, Hoy. Like you beat a team by was that 8 points? That feels like a huge win sometimes. Like it's a one-score game, but you're like, man, we kicked their ass out there today.
Yep.
Yeah, and Mahomes was hobbling around. But Hoyer, do you have a hero of the week for us?
I do. And we're not going to give it to Josh Allen this week, which is a surprise. I mean, the Patriots did a great job stopping him. So this week's Hero of the Week brought to you by Hero 95 Crisp Low Calorie Lager, only 95 calories and 3.6 carbs. Go find a hero at your local liquor store. Your friends will thank you later. Head to drinkhero95.com. Hero 95, brewed for the hero in you. This week's hero, rookie quarterback, not named Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I mean, this dude had an amazing game against arguably, we just said the Patriots win against arguably the best team. I thought going in this week, the Eagles were trending toward that direction. Now they lost Jalen Hurts early in the game, but Jaden Daniels, 5 touchdowns and the game-winning touchdown pass with about 30 seconds to go. I mean, for a rookie quarterback to do what he did against arguably, I mean, their defense is highly ranked. I mean, I know Jalen Hurts got hurt, but the Eagles' defense is in top 5 of almost every category. Vic Fangio. So to go in, and he had some turnovers he had to come back from, an impressive win. And he kind of said it after the game. He's like, if you want to be the big dog, you got to beat the big dog. And so he was, had that mentality. And I've thought he's been tremendous from week 1. He kind of hit a lull there, but now, they had a late bye week. Maybe he's going to catch his second win, and a tremendous performance by him.
Yeah, I watched this game. Great game. I think it's one of those games where you go in. I mean, I don't know if they're working this morning. I know we probably would be after this kind of game, but you go in Monday morning and you're like, thank God we won. That was great. Mental toughness, great facing adversity, great situational football at the end. A lot of great things in that game for this team. But this is not a formula for us to win, fellas. Like, you don't turn the ball over 5 times and win. I would love to see the statistic of that, because we know
it's probably not.
We know all those statistics of turning the ball over, win, lose. I think we were like 90% chance of winning if we don't turn the ball over.
But the Eagles had some costly turnovers too.
No, they did. But
so
still,
sometimes they cancel each other out.
Yeah, but still, that's not. Do they have
it's
5
not a
of them?
formula, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think the Eagles, if you're coming in Monday looking at this, like, all right, look, here's the deal. Like, we were close, but these are the things, they had some crucial drops I saw. especially from a great group of skill players, which I know they're probably not happy about, personally themselves. But, you know, here's the things we can clean up. It's one of those losses you're very frustrated, but you're like, man, we're okay. We just got to clean up these small things,
Yeah, I mean, Saquon did his best to carry those guys, and had they won, he probably could have been the hero of the week. So, I mean, they're lucky Jalen Hurts goes down. They still have Saquon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to answer your question about 5 turnovers and then winning a game, it's happened once this year. Actually, the Lions did it, but only 11 times in the past 15 years has a team done that.
Exactly.
Have 5 turnovers, then win the
Tough to
actual.
overcome.
It's very tough to overcome the possessions, and I think there's some stats this year like possessions are down, like teams are not getting as many possessions as they used to, which makes each play that more critical, each situation that more critical. So, I mean, it was some those 1 o'clock games are really good. That Panthers Cardinals game, I watched a lot of that. That was fun to watch. I think that's a team. They're getting a lot better, man. They're doing some good things. Bryce Young.
Happy for Bryce Young because I know. It
looks like he's, I don't know, talk about dealing with adversity. Got benched this year, has come back. I think he's playing pretty well. In the situation he's in down there. So,
I saw somewhere it said that was the first matchup of NFL quarterbacks 5'10" and under since like 1951.
What, Doug Flutie and Warren Moon, maybe?
1951? Warren Moon was not there.
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Hey, well, Hoyer, how about your Super Bowl pick on this show, the Minnesota Vikings? They are a fun football team to watch. They're playing great football. Your guy, Kevin O'Connell, he has 31 one-score wins since 2021, which is very impressive. So they're 8-1 in one-score games this year.
Hey,
they might take the 1 seed.
What was Jefferson's stat line? Because I didn't watch a lot of this game because of the Patriots game, but what was I saw a clip.
I got you. He had 2 touchdowns. I know that. But Jefferson had 10 catches, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
All right. The one clip I saw, he got behind the DB wide open for a touchdown. And I don't know if it was his first or second, but I'm just like, and I don't play defense, never played defense. It would be,
how could he be that open?
I'm just like, yeah. And I think about that with Randy Moss too.
Yeah.
And maybe they're just that gifted of players where the scheme is according to them, but they're just that good.
But you and I both know we were around Bill, and what would Bill come in and do? We're not going to let Jefferson beat us.
And we tried to do that in 22, and he still beat, or was that 20? Yeah, 22?
You're right, 22.
And he still had 100.
He beat a few double teams, which was ridiculous. I mean, he had a few of those catches.
It's amazing to watch, and you just would think eventually you're like, all right, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, they're going to beat us. I'll because you can't cover everyone, and they do have a good skill group, with those 3, and and Aaron Jones, but I'm like, all right, I'll be okay if Aaron Jones runs for 100 yards, T.J. Hawkinson has 60 something yards, and Addison has 50, but Justin Jefferson's gonna, but he finds a way, man. He's impressive. He's a great player, man.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold continues the ball, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, I actually, coming out of the post-game show last night, Albert Breer was there and Kevin O'Connell was on the phone, so I spoke to him. I said, hey, I don't want to jinx you, but right now on my podcast, you're my pick for the Super Bowl. So keep it rolling, and maybe we'll get a chance to try to bring him on as a guest. Kevin, I know from my rookie year, he obviously started off here in New England, which is crazy because 2 guys from that draft class in New England now head coaches in the league. Kevin O'Connell a little bit ahead of Gerard Mayo, but these guys were in the same draft. So the pedigree is there. But I just look at them. They're a special team. The offense, the story around Sam Darnold, you just mentioned they're skill players, but when you go to defense, a guy that we also are very familiar with in B. Flow, he's got that defense rolling because Seattle's no slouch. And Geno Smith had 3 touchdowns, but they also caused 2 interceptions. I was texting with Steph Gilmore over the weekend. I just saw on Instagram he had some, I'm a shoe guy, and he got these new all-purple Jordan 11 cleats, and he used to have the sickest Jordan cleats here. He would never wear them in the game. I said, you better be wearing these. And he was laughing and said, yeah, maybe for warm-ups. I don't know. Got to go with the white ones. But they're an interesting team, and it's going to come down to this Week 18 game between them and Detroit, I think, for that number 1 seed, which will be huge. because you and I both know what having that home field advantage can do for you. Although we knocked out Kansas City when they had that home field AFC Championship game,
What
so it's not always.
what'd you think of the Ravens Steelers game? You watched that one?
I watched a little bit. I mean, it to me like it's an AFC North. They're going to beat up on each other. They're both going to be in the playoffs. I don't think either one of them's going to have home field advantage. So I don't know how much. I mean, they could end up playing each other again here pretty soon. So they've split their series. The last time the Steelers won was they didn't score a touchdown. So I knew going into it the Steelers were going to have to score more points to beat those guys, and they weren't able to do it.
No, they look. The Ravens team's an interesting team to me. Shout out Kyle Van Noy. I mean,
Double-digit sacks.
dude is killing it, man. Doing it at a high level, and I think he started the year not on the roster either. So
Yeah,
I mean, just guys, he's a great teammate. Finds a way to make plays, and
smart player.
and I just think it's one of those things. Having a run game down in the stretch, you look at teams like the Ravens, Detroit, Philly, like even James Cook and Buffalo, like that does a lot for your football team down the stretch, man. I think as much as people want, not that they want it out of the game, but like as much as it seems like people are going away from it, that changes the game, man. Being able to run the football, keep players honest, beat up on teams, play it's a lot easier to, 1st and 10, hand the ball off and go to 2nd and 6 than people think it is just to throw a quick slant or a quick out sometimes,
And it's been a long year. People are beat up. I mean, if you're able, like we just talked about that Super Bowl run really became run dominant, and it's if you're able to do that at the end of the year, that travels well, and you can take that into anywhere. And if you can run the ball, you could stop the run. You're already at a huge advantage.
Yep. I think there's something to be said about that. Teams late that are able to run the football is, it's very effective. And as an offensive lineman, I love it. Like, let's line up, run the football. I think you talk about, what'd you call them? Breather plays.
Yep.
Sometimes those are run plays for O linemen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy. It's not, but it's like, all right, now we're taking the game into our hands a little bit here. So, I like to watch these teams that are able to run the ball down the stretch and see what they're able to do. And I think, and when you're able to do that with a quarterback like Lamar or Josh Allen or Hurts, where you can also use them at times, like it's very interesting, man. And like I said, I love that part of the game.
It was a fun
staying in
week.
the NFC North real quick. I mean, it wasn't a great game to watch, but the trickery from the Detroit Lions, I thought they were stealing my Stumble-Rooski. We ran that at Michigan State against Notre Dame, actually, where I was I had actually fumbled a snap early in that Notre Dame game, and we kind of had this play in our bag. Like I was going to pretend like I fumbled the snap. The running back goes to act like he's picking it up, and I threw a touchdown pass to my tight end. But then I saw.
Did you see where it came from?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Jordan
Ben
Love.
Johnson kind of stole it from the Packers. Jordan Love, who actually tripped, and they hit it against them previously. But always fun to see something like that, and especially when it pays off. And I thought Jahmyr Gibbs did a tremendous job just selling out, because when I first watched it, I thought they actually stumbled and fell. And that's a great play to do it on, where you kind of get the whole line going left. They see the defense thinks you fumbled the ball, going to recover it, and the tight end kind of leaks back out up the sideline. So it was executed to perfection.
So repeat league, Hoyer, repeat league, baby.
That's right.
Just a classic Lions play. Well, that's a wrap on week 16 in the NFL. That's a wrap on episode 19, our Christmas episode. But Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry
Hoyer,
Christmas.
you going to sing us a Christmas song?
Feliz Navidad. No, I'm not.
That's
I don't
what
have
you're
a
going to
great
go
voice.
with?
No. What is your favorite? I mean, we didn't do the.
You know what? I
don't.
I don't love Christmas music. Like, I'm not like, oh, we got to turn on Christmas music. But I love the Little Drummer Boy song.
That's a good one. My daughter sang.
la.
Yeah, my daughter sang that one at her Christmas concert.
I love
like
that.
Santa
I don't know
Baby.
why.
Okay, how about favorite Christmas movie?
Grinch.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love
This
the
is going to
Grinch.
explain the different levels of age here.
I also love Christmas Vacation.
Great one.
Shitter's Full.
Shitter's full. To me, it's Home Alone and Home Alone. The Home Alone for me that's right in my wheelhouse. I was about 10 years old when it came out, and my kids love it. I've got them hooked. Those are my go-to Christmas movies.
I love it. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
We'll have an episode next week for you as well, headed into New Year's, get you ready for your New Year's parties. But we'll see you next week.